Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a closer look at something pretty fundamental in law, really, how the way a crime is committed can actually increase the punishment. We're diving into paragraph 14 of the revised penal code you shared, which focuses on crimes involving cleverness or deception, not just brute force.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that using your wits, your intellect, to commit a crime. Well, the law sees that as potentially more serious than just acting on impulse.
So it's not just what you did, but the cunning behind it.
Precisely. And the law actually gets quite specific. It's not just vague deception. The prosecution usually has to show it fits into one of three categories: craft, fraud, or disguise.
Okay, three pillars. Let's unpack that first one. Craft. What exactly is craft in this legal sense?
So craft is essentially intellectual trickery. It's about using cunning, a deliberate scheme. But the key part is that it's used primarily to help in carrying out the crime itself.
Indeed. So it sounds like preparation, like setting the scene.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. It often involves planning, thinking things through clearly. The goal is usually to avoid suspicion or to make the crime easier to pull off without being immediately noticed.
Okay. Is there an example that sort of brings craft to life?
Oh, definitely. There's a classic case, U.S. v. Gumponia, quite old, 1917. These individuals basically concocted this wild story about a magical tree with special liquid just to lure the victim to a remote spot.
A magical tree, seriously.
Yeah, an elaborate ruse. And once they got him there isolated, they murdered him. That whole intricate, deceptive setup before the act, that's textbook craft. It wasn't direct inducement, it was stage setting.
Wow. Okay, that's clear. Now, you mentioned craft and fraud are often confused. Let's get into fraud then. How is it different?
Right, the distinction is super important. It really boils down to interaction. While craft is more about manipulating the environment or circumstances, fraud involves using insidious words or machinations. It's about directly inducing the victim.
Inducing them, like talking them into doing something.
Exactly. You're actively persuading the victim through lies or tricks in communication to act in a way that makes the crime possible or easier for the offender.
So craft is setting the trap. Fraud is talking the prey into walking into it.
That's a perfect analogy. Think about U.S. v. Abeland. In that case, the defendants convinced the victims they'd be safe, told them to surrender their weapons for protection.
Okay.
And the moment they were disarmed, they attacked. That false promise, that direct communication designed to make the victims lower their guard, that was the fraud. It directly manipulated their actions.
Got it. Direct inducement through words or signals. Makes sense. Okay, what about the third pillar? Disguise. That sounds more straightforward.
It generally is, yeah. Disguise is pretty much what it sounds like. Using any means to conceal your identity. Masks, painting your face, wearing a uniform you're not entitled to. Like a constabulary uniform in one case. Even using a fake name can count.
But surely there are limits. What if the disguise is, well, terrible?
Ah, good point. It has to actually work, to some extent. And the purpose has to be about gaining an advantage for the crime, like avoiding identification.
So a bad disguise might not count.
Right. There was a case, People v. Reyes, where the person wore this, really clumsy mask and sunglasses, but you could still see his mustache, his face was recognizable. The court said, look, if it doesn't effectively conceal identity, it doesn't aggravate the crime. The deception has to be functional.
Okay, that's a key practical point. This raises another question, though. What if the crime itself already involves deception, like, say, estafa or something?
Ah, yes, that's a critical legal limitation. It's often called the element integration rule. Basically, Article 62 says you can't count craft, fraud, or disguise as an aggravating circumstance if that specific type of deception is already an essential element of the crime you're being charged with.
So you can't double dip on the deception factor.
Exactly. For instance, in qualified theft, sometimes fraud takes the place of, say, unlawful entry as the means of getting the property. If fraud is what makes it qualified theft in the first place, you can't then add fraud again as a separate aggravating circumstance to increase the penalty further. It's already baked into the charge.
Okay, that prevents unfair piling on.
Right.
So, wrapping this up, the big takeaway for you listening seems to be that the law takes calculated deception really seriously. It punishes not just the crime, but the extra layer of cunning used to pull it off.
It really does. It's about that deliberate deceptive advantage that goes beyond just, straightforward criminal action. And interestingly, it's not just about intending to deceive. Yeah, the deception generally has to actually facilitate the crime to count. There was this other case, People v. Cunning, where the attackers started out in disguise.
Okay, so disguise was present initially.
Right, but then they immediately announced their attack, shouting, firing guns. The court basically said that all the noise and open hostility completely negated any deceptive effect the disguise might have had at the very start.
Ah, so the later actions counteracted the initial deception.
Exactly. It showed the disguise didn't really help them commit the crime in the end because they immediately revealed their hostile intent. So the law looks at whether the deception actually worked, whether it gave a real advantage. It's not just about the thought, but the effect. Makes you think, doesn't it? What happens when the plan to deceive just falls apart?